inhaled in cities. At first the glands are moderately enlarged, firm, inky black, and gritty on section. Later they enlarge still further, often becoming fibrous from the irritation set up by the minute foreign bodies with which they are crammed, and may break down into a soft slimy mass, or may calcify. The lymphatic vessels of the thoracic viscera comprise those of the heart and pericardium, lungs and pleura, thymus, and esophagus. The lymphatic vessels of the heart consist of two plexuses, A, deep, immediately under the endocardium, and B, superficial, subjacent to the visceral pericardium. The deep plexus opens into the superficial, the efferents of which form right and left collecting trunks. The left trunks, 2 or 3 in number, ascend in the anterior longitudinal sulcus, receiving, in their course, vessels from both ventricles. On reaching the coronary sulcus they are joined by a large trunk from the diaphragmatic surface of the heart, and then unite to form a single vessel which ascends between the pulmonary artery and the left atrium, and ends in one of the tracheobronchial glands. The right trunk receives its afferents from the right atrium and from the right border and diaphragmatic surface of the right ventricle. It ascends in the posterior longitudinal sulcus, and then runs forward in the coronary sulcus, and passes up behind the pulmonary artery to end in one of the tracheobronchial glands. The lymphatic vessels of the lungs originate in two plexuses, a superficial and a deep. The superficial plexus is placed beneath the pulmonary pleura. The deep accompanies the branches of the pulmonary vessels and the ramifications of the bronchi. In the case of the larger bronchi, the deep plexus consists of two networks, one submucous between the mucous membrane, and another peribronchial outside the walls of the bronchi. In the smaller bronchi there is but a single plexus, which extends as far as the bronchioles, but fails to reach the alveoli, in the walls of which there are no traces of lymphatic vessels. The superficial efferents turn around the borders of the lungs and the margins of their fissures, and converge to end in some glands situated at the hilus. The deep efferents are conducted to the hilus along the pulmonary vessels and bronchi, and end in the tracheobronchial glands. Little or no anastomosis occurs between the superficial and deep lymphatics of the lungs, except in the region of the hilus. The lymphatic vessels of the pleura consist of two sets, one in the visceral and another in the parietal part of the membrane. Those of the visceral pleura drain into the superficial efferents of the lung, while the lymphatics of the parietal pleura have three modes of ending. These are: A. Those of the costal portion join the lymphatics of the intercostales interni, and so reach the sternal glands. B. Those of the diaphragmatic part are drained by the efferents of the diaphragm, while C. Those of the mediastinal portion terminate in the posterior mediastinal glands. The lymphatic vessels of the thymus end in the anterior mediastinal, tracheobronchial, and sternal glands. The lymphatic vessels of the esophagus form a plexus around that tube, and the collecting vessels from the plexus drain into the posterior mediastinal glands. End of Section 50. End of Anatomy of the Human Body, Part 3, by Henry Gray.